Welcome back, Astro listeners, to the Star Lady Soul Reader Network. This is Media Monk, and as always, I have on the line our shining star of the zodiac, Star Lady. Hi, Star Lady.
Hello, Media Monk.
And we all know Star Lady is Kim Marie, the managing director for the network. EAN continues to certify new evolutionary astrologers, and yet we also have a lot of materials on our website for that next level of soul growth in anyone's life. So always go to www.evolutionaryastrology.net. You can get a recording of this free podcast there on the podcast page. Take a look at the Astro Library. And I might also say that we've put the Astro Library on sale. You can save $50 for a lifetime subscription to the Astro Library, where you get all sorts of videos, the Jeff Green videos, all the EA Inner Circle from years gone by, as well as a lot of Kim Marie material as well, Star Lady, of course, in these podcasts. So consider that. And because we do have a new moon in Libra, lots to talk about, I'll turn it over to you, honey.
Well, sweetie, that new moon in Libra is a South Node solar eclipse on October 14th, which is coming up in just a few days. However, before we go into forecasting and world events, I'm just going to take a moment here to detach a little bit from all that and say, happy anniversary, Media Monk. We are recording this podcast on October 11th, and it just happens to be our 20th wedding anniversary. And so if you are friends with me on Facebook, you can go to my Facebook page where I have posted a whole bunch of photos of me and Media Monk, my sweetheart. So, happy anniversary, honey.
Hey, ditto. Any couple that can go through an entire Jupiter-Saturn cycle together, I guess, has something to hang their hat on. So, thanks for being my partner.
We've made the Jupiter cycle. We haven't quite made a Saturn cycle yet, babe. But hey,
we haven't done that.
Jupiter-Saturn together is a 20-year cycle, so their phasal relationship is the phase they were at when we got married.
Right. There's the right way to say it. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you for clarifying all those astrology details for all of us over the last 20, 30, 40 years too. Appreciate that.
You are most welcome. So, thank you everyone for understanding that we are just stepping outside of the consensus world a little bit and celebrating ourselves this week. And going, hey, we reached a milestone. We are blessed enough to be in a safe place on the planet, and I think we're going to celebrate when we're done with this podcast. And so, here we are, South Node eclipse season, starting off with a bang. However, you have to have your head in the sand to miss the fact that the year is another war that's been started on planet Earth over in the Middle East. And when Hamas did their attack on October 7th, I just kept going, oh, Pluto direct. Oh, yeah, there's some eclipses. But Pluto went stationary direct the day before we recorded this podcast on October 10th. And then Pluto went direct at 27 Capricorn, 53 minutes. It has one more retrograde cycle back into Capricorn next year, and we'll go stationary direct even later degrees in Capricorn next year. However, I just thought, this is just so typical of Pluto Capricorn, the haves and the have-nots, and they exist on both sides of usually any kind of conflict. And, Pluto stationary direct can be wanting to break free from the powers that be, however your perception of that is. And, I've just all my life been of the opinion that war doesn't create peace. Now, I just happened to hear someone say a little bit ago that some of the greatest peace treaties in the world have come after open war and conflicts, and may that be the case. I think I had said in our last podcast, wondering how we as U.S. citizens would be handling our own collective persona, because Pluto turns stationary direct 20 minutes from our natal USA Pluto. So we have USA Pluto at 2735 Capricorn, and Pluto went direct at 2753 Capricorn. So it has retrograded back to being extremely close, sitting on the degree of the USA natal Pluto. Of course, what are we in this country but, half our discretionary budget or something like that goes to the military, almost $1 trillion a year. What is it, the next 7 to 10 countries together don't spend as much as we do. We always seem to have ourselves in any conflict, and why there may be this altruism that, we want peace. We are some of the biggest warmongers there are. And just as a little reminder for you, the first thing Donald Trump did as president was pull the U.S. out of its nuclear accord with Iran. And the other thing Donald Trump did as president was move the U.S. Embassy from Tel Aviv, the capital of Israel, to Jerusalem, which, if you go back in history, has long been the back and forth between Arabs and Jews, because each call it their primary religious spot. Add Christians onto that. By the way, I've said this before, but it's been a while. If you want a fiction book on the history of the three biggest religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, James Michener wrote a book back in the 1960s or 70s called The Source, and it goes over 10,000 years of history in the Middle East, in the area around Palestine and Jerusalem. It's a great historical context if you are interested in that. And so here's the Pluto surprise. And not only that, as Pluto turns stationary direct, it is within 3 degrees of squaring the transiting north node in Aries and the transiting south node in Libra. Now Pluto will go direct and pull away from the square over the next few months, but it's been going reverse for 5 months with the nodal axis that had an exact square, and it's still pretty darn close. So here's all of these skip steps in consciousness on a collective level of self-responsibility, maturity in healthy ways. The archetype of Capricorn, the distortions and woundedness of Capricorn is power over, power under with Pluto, haves and have-nots. And the natural expression is, how do we mature and all be responsible? And how do we all learn how to have our healthy consensus rules and agreements and geographical boundaries, so we can learn how to get together and get along together in this sandbox? Pluto square the nodes is telling us one more time, it's not going quite so good. In addition to that, as I said before, we will start a south node eclipse season. That means the sun is in Libra, traveling on the south node. And that eclipse is going to be 21 degrees Libra on October 14th. If you live in the western United States, you have a very wonderful chance of seeing this partial solar eclipse. Pacific time, it will be 11 a.m. Mountain time will be noon. And it'll start, an hour before that, go an hour after, more or less. But if you, by any chance, have cloud-free skies, by all means, get out there and look at that solar eclipse. Because if I remember correctly, don't take this as a fact, but I think it's 2038 before we'll have another solar eclipse across the United States. Remember the one we had August 17th? That was the one was in August of 27. That one was literally in my backyard back in 2017. I don't know what I was saying, 2017. So they don't come around all that often. We can always see a lunar eclipse, which come on the 28th, because that's visible over half of a hemisphere. Solar eclipses are very narrow, 90-degree paths. South node eclipse season means reviewing the past, meaning rehashing things, revisiting things, repeating things. Oh, another war in general. Oh, another conflict in the Middle East. The charts of Israel and the Hamas attack are fascinating. I'm going to give you the birth data in case any of you want to draw up your own charts. The commonly used chart for Israel is May 14th, 1948. That's when they first decided, okay, Israel, you get this land. Okay, Arabs, you get this land. May 14th, 1948, 4:07 p.m., 4:07 p.m. in Tel Aviv, Israel. The data for the Hamas attacks being used is October 7th, 23, 6:30 a.m. in the morning. I don't know if I'm going to pronounce this right. Sederot, Israel. S-E-D as in dog, E-R-O-T. S-E-D-E-R-O-T, Sederot, Israel. Both have Libra risings. Israel, 1948 chart, has a Libra rising of 24 degrees. Transiting south node is at 25 degrees Libra on the attack. Mars is at 26 degrees Libra. The sun was on the Israeli Neptune at 10 degrees Libra. I mean, the hits of the attack on the Israeli chart are just, there's so many of them. Again, I would encourage you to create the bi-wheel of the charts yourself, because there's just hit after hit after hit. Libra, for those of you who might not be familiar with this, Venus and Mars were the real visible planets in the ancient days before telescopes, and their retrograde cycles were closely watched. And many times their cycles were the war planets. And Venus was a war planet just as much as Mars was. Mars rules Aries, the first archetype of the zodiac. We are used to that one being known as a war archetype. But Libra, opposite of Aries, initiating the second half of the circle, can be the extremes of inequality in regards to groups of people not getting along. And so Venus has been a war planet throughout history as much as Mars. Venus was in late Leo, smack dab by degree on Israel's Mars in Leo, and we have a Venus-Saturn opposition in the sky on Israel's Mars. So all these Libra planets can be the extremes of imbalance that we have going on between two different religious systems, two different secular systems. And I do think that Hamas are terrorists. They're not your average Palestinians. Israel is the 10th house Pluto, with a moon, Pluto, Saturn, stellium. 10th house, Pluto's house of rulership. The stellium is in Leo from 1948. The Hamas attack, transiting Pluto, just getting ready to go stationary direct, was just inside the 4th house cusp for Israel. That's the emotional shock that everybody felt. In addition to the fact that transiting Uranus at 22 Taurus is right on top of Israel's sun at 23 Taurus. Just absolutely fascinating to look at all of the hits with the astrology. You know, they say you can't make this stuff up, and that is definitely true of these charts. You don't need me to tell you to pray for peace. These planets in Libra, especially these inner planets, they're all going to make last quarter squares to Pluto in Capricorn. So they're going to be that rub between the inequality and who gets the power and who gets the control. Mars moved into Scorpio today, October 11th, as of this recording, for October 11th through November 24th. Mars into Scorpio is power struggles. Who's got the power? Well, I'm going to say that Israel is probably the mightier war power. Stay tuned. One more time, I don't think this is going to be one of those things that ends very fast. Pluto in Aquarius can be rebellions, but it can also be anarchy. And Pluto in Aquarius can carry on the warmongering, just like Pluto in Capricorn brought up. There could be interesting times here ahead. Pray for peace, pray for peace, pray for peace. Mercury's going to go into Scorpio October 22nd through November 10th. And then the Sun enters Scorpio October 23rd. The mantra for Scorpio: I metamorphose myself with evolving self-reliance. I metamorphose myself with evolving self-reliance. If I would create a wounded mantra for Scorpio, it would be, I have experienced the rug ripped out underneath me to the point of my survival, which is literal for some people, which is literal for too many people all across the planet, whether they live in an area at war or not. Somewhere through the next 24 years of Pluto in Aquarius, we as human beings on this planet have to make a conscious decision of whether we're going to try and get along with each other, or whether it is going to be the power grabs that we see with Pluto and Scorpio 8th house. Are we going to have the power grabs and come hell or high water, it's all of the Taurian survivalism of me against you and us against them? Stay tuned. It's going to bring in some deep discussions about this through these inner planets transiting through Taurus. The South Node lunar eclipse that's going to come October 28th is going to be Sun at 5 Scorpio and Moon at 5 Taurus. So all of this is going to be emphasized through this month of October. Can you pray for peace? I really do believe that when enough of us desire it and consciously energize it, it can come about on the planet. How much shock does it take for consensus environments to wake up and metamorphose? Not only did Mars go over the South Node October 4th, just before it was conjunct on the attack on Israel, but we also have Sun over the South Node October 18th, Mercury over the South Node October 19th, They're all taking place around that 24, 25, 26 degrees. Again, right on Israel's ascendant, with the North Node in Aries on its descendant. The aggressiveness that's going to come out of Israel is going to surprise many. I'm not here to choose a side. I'm just here to be an astrologer who points out as above, so below, and who also points out that we have uniform evolution and we have cataclysmic evolution. Uniform evolution is the changes that we make day by day, by day by day, by day by day. A baby, a teenager, an adult, middle age, elderly, and back to ashes. Cataclysmic evolution is just as it sounds. It's kind of like earthquakes. The pressure builds and builds and builds until the status quo can no longer be maintained. And, surprising volcanoes and earthquakes and tsunamis and landslides and war breaks out. Can the consensus world, which is approximately 7 out of 10 souls, step back and go, oh, wait a minute, what created all this? How are we going to take the larger viewpoint? How are we all going to put our energies together as countries all over the world and say, Ukraine has a right to its autonomy geographically. Palestine has a right to its autonomy geographically. How do we get along? And if we think we're not going to have more people moving all over the planet, welcome to Pluto and Aquarius, welcome to Uranus and Gemini in 2025. Welcome to Chiron and Taurus in 2026, looking for survival. By the way, the end of this month, I am going to be doing a private workshop for the Manitoba Astrological Association. It's going to be a 6-hour workshop on the Great Ingress Decade. I'm going to go through Pluto Aquarius, Neptune Aries, Uranus Gemini, and Chiron Taurus. And after that workshop, when we get to the month of November, we will offer the recording of that for sale publicly. The wild ride of this decade is just beginning. So stay tuned. We'll advertise it as much as we can for all of you who would like to get in touch in a more detailed way with what these four outer planetary archetype ingresses are going to mean for the masses on the planet. Breathe deep. Pray for peace. Energize peace. Wherever you are, to the extent that you are safe, get out in nature, because nature is where we have the observation correlation of our natural spiritual laws and principles. May all souls on planet be safe. May all species that are living be safe. Thank you, everyone.
We'll see you next time on this evolving journey to the core of our souls, and sometimes cataclysmic, unfortunately. So thanks for tuning in, everyone. We'll see you in a couple of weeks.